Hello, and welcome to this third and final segment of our lecture series in Unit 2 on-farm grain drying and storage. We'll finish up here with a rather short segment that will kind of go over some of the keys and how grain is monitored, and then the moisture conditions that we would like to store it in. Let's get to our content. So when we talk about the cost of these systems, and of course, they can be as expensive as you want to make them. A lot of it fluctuates with the type of dryer or drying system that you want to put in. Of course, gas drying, the price of LP gas is a huge influencer on the cost of the system, as well as some other things that factor into that as well. So the less supplemental heat that you're going to plan to utilize, the cheaper it's going to be. So again, like all things that we've been talking about this semester and we'll talk about, is do a really good cost analysis of it. Do a good feasibility analysis to see if it's going to pencil out for you. And make sure and incorporate the 6 things that I've got listed here, from interest to labor, all the way down at the bottom of the screen here on the bottom left. Is you got to calculate in what those are going to cost you and how much savings you could possibly recover. And don't forget to factor in potentially advantages in pricing as you kind of stretch out your marketing opportunities as well. So moisture determination, when we look at grain moisture, it's either determined by direct or indirect methods. And a direct method is typically used in laboratory work. Most of you are probably familiar with the moisture tester that you dump a sample of grain into, hit a button, and in a couple seconds it spits you out a moisture reading. And that is mostly an electrical conductivity test. And that is primarily what's used in the industry, like out on the farm or in the bin type of situation. So many of your elevator systems have in bin and inline moisture meters, and all they're doing again is a basic quick little conductivity test, because the moisture affects the electrical properties of the kernel, and so it'll convert it quickly to a moisture content mathematically within that moisture meter. But it's important to have good functioning, and you noticed on the video of the gentleman that I showed you there from Minnesota, the millennial farmer, he went and cleaned his moisture meter out because he knows that occasionally it accumulates dust on it, or chaff sticks to it, and then you get some incorrect readings. So he made sure to clean his moisture meter, and just like anything else, you want to service it on a regular basis. You have to understand that there's also this concept of moisture shrink. So if you put corn in the bin at 20% moisture, there's a whole lot more water in the bin than once it dries down to 15% moisture. So that removal of water during the grain drying process is referred to as moisture shrink. And so there's a calculation here that you can kind of plan for that, but it's ultimately going to mean a few less bushels at the end of the day that you put in versus come out because of moisture shrink. So just understand that loss of water costs you a little bit. So when we talk about recommended storage moisture, really, as long as you can keep grain at the correct moisture and keep the pests out of it, grain can be stored for quite a long period of time if it's at the correct temperature and the correct moisture content and void of insects. So the quality can remain very significant. Even heard the gentleman from Minnesota talk about they will get theirs to the point where it will freeze in the bin, because then that'll make sure that there'll be no insects or anything else that can grow under those conditions, and that'll preserve that grain at that temperature and moisture content until it thaws. They thaw it and then are ready to move it out. So when we talk about short-term storage, though, in this neck of the woods, in this part of the United States, we're typically talking about the winter months. So let's say harvest to March or April. If we talk about long-term storage considerations, we're generally talking about extending through the summer period. Anytime that you start to reach the conditions where you're going to get past, let's say, that April timeframe into May and so forth, you have to be really aware of the potential problem with insects, And I'm sure that you've studied in our integrated pest management courses, grain weevil and things of that nature, and the damaging effects that they can have to a bin full of grain. So damaged kernels are going to cause, with significant amounts of foreign material in it, you'll have to store it at 1 to 2 percentage points lower than good, sound, clean grain. Bottom line is, you say, well, what's the normal storage moisture that I need, whether it's long-term or short-term? This is the percent moisture, whether it's long-term or short-term storage. And I've listed the main ones plus a few others for you to consider. So, if you're talking about long-term storage in corn, it's 13. Short-term, 15.5. Most corn that goes on the rail has to be about 15.5, or they are not going to take it on the rail in many situations. So unless it's going very short distance. So anyhow, just a few ideas in terms of what we're talking about with regard to moisture considerations. And then finally, to complete this unit, accurate moisture testing is really important. Occasionally, you need to turn on your fans, not blow any heat, but occasionally turn on the fans just to air it out. That's just simple good management. Don't forget, just like we teach you in crops class and crop scouting class and ag chemicals, to monitor your fields, scout your fields on a regular basis, know what's out there, know what's going on, identify potential trouble. Don't forget to scout your crop once it's in the bin. Occasionally, you need to climb that bin, take a peek in the hatch, potentially pull a sample, check your moisture content, and do that on a regular enough basis that you can monitor grain quality and know if you need to turn the fan on, run a little air through it, and keep it aerated out and at the correct moisture. So it's imperative that you do that in order to keep grain in good condition, so it'll flow good when coming out of the bin. It's in good quality and also free of insects. Hopefully that will wrap up our content here with Unit 2 in our 3-segment video series here of lectures online. I look forward to talking about these storage methods and opportunities when we get to class and have the opportunity to go through some of the activities that are going to be associated with this unit. Thanks for tuning in.